Madam Chancellor, I have the honor to present to you, for the degree of Doctor of Civil Laws, honoris causa, David Duncan Smith. The Acadia yearbook from 1966 had a notation next to graduate David Smith's name that said his next step would be a career in the law. And indeed, David did pursue that career in law, but that is only part of his story. David's law career began in Moncton in 1971, and while I'm certain his clients over the next 20 years benefited greatly from his skill and expertise, his community benefited at least in equal measure. David began his commitment to community service in 1972 when he joined the board of the YMCA, eventually serving as its chair. From 1991 to 1993, during David's tenure as board chair, the YMCA Foundation raised $1 million for its growing programming-related needs. David's works at the YMCA notwithstanding, during the late 1980s and early 1990s, he played a much larger role in what most Maritimers recognize as one of the country's most remarkable turnaround stories. That story, of course, is the story of Greater Moncton's economic renaissance. Beginning in 1985 and ending only when David was appointed to the bench in 1993, he chaired Resurgio, Inc., a City of Moncton organization charged with undertaking revitalization activities on behalf of the city. Among its many business accomplishments, Resurgio also repurposed the former Capitol Theatre into a live performing arts center. Between 1990 and 1993, David also chaired the Moncton Airport Economic Development Board. This at the same time that he chaired the Moncton Airport Transfer Study Group. This latter group was responsible for evaluating the benefits of transferring the airport from Transport Canada to local airport authority, and, if beneficial, to negotiate the transfer. In 1997, just 4 years after David surrendered his volunteer duties, the Greater Moncton International Airport became the first privatized national airport in Atlantic Canada. Today, Moncton is a testament to how business communities, when faced with challenges, can find new and innovative ways to attract investment and customers. David's business professors at Acadia should be proud. Now, David was appointed to New Brunswick's Court of Queen Bench Family Division in 1993. 5 short years later, he was elevated to Chief Justice. David Smith, as I hope my remarks outline, is defined by what he believes to be right and just. And he possesses remarkable and equal measures of grit and determination. As was noted in his nomination letter, judicial appointments, while acknowledging those who have demonstrated tremendous capacity for work, alongside unassailable individual integrity, often remove some of our most effective volunteers and public servants from boards and agencies that benefit society, and silence their voices on matters of broad public interest. For David Smith, the former may be true, but the latter is not. From the bench, he has not wavered from his determination to improve society, at least through the means over which he has most influence, the legal process and access to the courts. In May of 2009, then New Brunswick Minister of Justice T.J. Burke angrily alleged Chief Justice Smith had crossed the line when he publicly criticized the government's recent budget for slashing the number of family court social workers, reducing legal aid funds, and eliminating the province's small claims court. Apparently, David had used a speech to the Moncton Chamber of Commerce to declare that the province, without consultation, had made decisions that would have an extreme, detrimental impact on families, many of which are at their most vulnerable and in need of assistance when before the courts. Unusual for a judge? Yes. Unusual for David Smith? No. In October 2014, David was in the spotlight again when he presided over the very public trial of Justin Burke, the self-admitted killer of 3 Moncton RCMP officers. Those dark days in June 2014 shocked and outraged our country. In a clearly worded decision, David sentenced Burke to life in prison with no chance of parole for 75 years, the longest sentence in Canada since the death penalty was formally abolished in 1967. David has received numerous honors for his work and citizenry. In 1985, he was appointed Queen's Counsel. In 1992, he received both a 125th anniversary of the Confederation of Canada Medal for his contributions to Canadian society and an Excellence Award from the Greater Moncton Chamber of Commerce. And in 1999, he joined the Order of Regents of the Université de Moncton. David Smith QC, Chief Justice of the Court of Queen's Bench of New Brunswick, has served his community and country with distinction and honor. He sets out a remarkable role model for others, including, most notably, those students of the Faculty of Professional Studies who graduated here today, and who we charge with the responsibility to strive for positive changes in our society, such as David has. Madam Chancellor, it is my pleasure to present to you David Duncan Smith. David is a jurist, mountain mover, humanitarian, exemplary role model, and proud member of Acadia's class of 1966 and now 2015. I present him, Madam Chancellor, that he might receive honor at your hand.
David Duncan Smith, by the authority vested in me by the Senate of Acadia University, I admit you to the degree of Doctor of Civil Laws, honoris causa, with all the rights and privileges pertaining to that degree.
Chancellor, Mr. President, Your Worship, faculty, family, friends, graduates, especially graduates, congratulations. Thank you for this wonderful honor and the invitation to address you today. Acadia has had a spot reserved in my heart since I first pulled into Wolfville 52 years ago. It was lonely, but surprisingly, this may sound a little strange, but the presence of a fellow New Brunswicker in the form of a service station next to my residence at the bottom of Highland Avenue gave me some comfort and familiarity of home. It is, of course, long gone, but the Irvings still have a presence here, but now in the form of the magnificent new Casey Irving Environmental Science Center. What a fabulous addition to this top-class university. choosing this university was one of my best decisions. I don't often speak to an audience this large, but when I do, at the end of the speech, someone usually goes to jail. There's no threat of jail today, so to keep your attention, so brevity will have to suffice, because it's understandable that your attention may wander while pondering the question of what is going to happen now. In grade 12, my chemistry teacher demonstrated the volatility of potassium and water in the lab by placing a very small piece of it on the water, and it raced around on the top, eventually fizzing out. It was fairly exciting, and a friend and I wondered what a bigger piece in water would do. So one afternoon after class, we retrieved a bottle of oil containing potassium from the lab. We then took the biggest possible piece out that we could get. We threw it into a toilet in the men's lavatory. As any of you with a chemistry background might guess, it was quite spectacular. It blew up the toilet, and pieces of potassium hit the ceiling and walls, bursting into flames every time we threw a little water on it. We decided it was probably time to go home. The next day, my friend didn't show up to class, and the talk at the school was the fire trucks had been there the previous evening. Out of 1,200 students, I was called to the principal's office. I pleaded my defense before the principal, who luckily for me had taught chemistry and experienced a similar accident with potassium, so all was forgiven. But after that independent experiment, the chem lab was kept locked, and there were some skeptical teachers. Some years later, I was greeted on the sidewalk by one of the skeptics who asked what I was doing. I replied that I'd been practicing law for a few years. He looked very surprised. He paused, then said, "Smith, I always knew you were a late bloomer." It was a relief to know that in his mind I'd passed from a bomber to a bloomer. He may have been entitled to his initial doubts, but I am a firm believer that we humans are perennials. We bloom repeatedly, as you have here today with your graduation. We flourish many times during our lives, like certain flowers. Morning glories are an interesting example that surprisingly blooms more readily when conditions seem less than ideal. We can do likewise. I experienced this at the age of 18 with the passing of my father. Somehow this unfortunate event was a catalyst that motivated me to take initiatives that bore fruit in due course. My studies here were part of those enterprises. We can sometimes make wonderful gains even when circumstances would appear to be unfavorable. Do you not think that sometimes we excel in this way, not despite the difficulties, but precisely because of them? These proceedings are sometimes called a commencement. But what is beginning and what is ending to allow this new start? You've probably noticed with your passages thus far, elementary to middle and high school to university, residing with your parents or guardians to independent living, that what usually ends is a measure of certainty. We progressively step into a totally or partially unknown future. This is probably truer for you today than any previous graduating class. When I was leaving university, it was easier, but I hasten to add it wasn't as exciting. If one had reasonably good marks, neatly combed hair, and could converse in a manner that gave the impression, rightly or wrongly, of intelligence, there was not too much to fear. There was a reasonable certainty of choice of profession and a career path relatively free of imposed detours. Relationships and forms of communication were not, for the most part, overly complicated. Commencement speakers could project their visionary ideas on a clean and well-framed canvas, sure that their verbal images would long remain with minimal questioning or revision. It's not as easy now to lay out for you a clear and detailed map for the long term that you can unquestionably follow. Currently, whether in relationships or career, the common dictum of expecting the unexpected certainly applies. Few choices of profession have a guarantee of enduring. And changes in the global climate, physical as well as economic and social, have removed certainty of financial success for those of us in privileged nations as well as those less fortunate. There are many that I respect and admire in recent generations for their willingness to embrace uncertainty. We are told to embrace change, even though the last time most of us embraced change was when we were babies. But this is an action that is and will be imposed on you. What is the underlying attitude of embracing uncertainty, whether in work, in parenting, in politics, or in community activities? The attitude prescribed for those like me when graduating, those many long years ago, be diligent, work hard at what you do, is still valid, but may no longer completely be adequate in our present world. Achieving your objective may need to be realized by many different means as years go by. This could be true even for those objectives that are currently well viewed. Environmental protection, gender equality, even elements of social control such as policing and administration of justice. The same will be true for you in whatever voyage you may embark upon. If you enter with strongly held values to which you remain true, the unexpected changes that you will encounter during your lifetime, while challenging, will not be a deterrent. They may, in fact, be the catalyst that we've spoken about that will embolden you to be the very best you can be. To imagine a group such as this, facing challenges, committed to the values underlying their choices, and acting to their full potential is very encouraging. You leave no reason to doubt the future. As sure as the apple trees in Annapolis Valley will bloom and bear fruit this year and every year, you will continue the long tradition of this wonderful university, writing stories of engagement and success that will be celebrated, modeling behaviors that will be emulated, making a difference in your immediate families and those in the nation and the world. I look out at you with respect, honor, and the warmest good wishes. Thank you.